Parliament, fellow leaders, friends, fellow Ugandans, brothers and sisters from Kenya, fellow Africans, I salute you today. I am very, very grateful for your presence. I want to thank many of you that have come from Uganda. It has not been very easy to be here. I appreciate your presence. Fellow East Africans, the Kenyans, our brothers and sisters that have always looked out for us. Thank you very much for coming. I want to give respect to our elders, the likes of Imam Kasozi, who we've watched over time, the likes of General Shamuntu, and in a very special way, Dr. Kizza Besigye. We salute you for showing us the way and continuing to stand and lead. I'll remind you, Dr. Besigye, and you briefly talked about it, that you are the person that challenged me and many other people in my generation to rise to the occasion. It was that visit when I visited you in prison that you told me, while looking in my eyes, that you were a successful doctor during the Amin times. But because nobody was safe until everybody was safe, you got into the trenches where you still are today. I want you to know, sir, that we hold you in very high regard. We respect you, we love you, and we are with you. To the Kenyans, I personally got moved and shaken to awakeness when I was in military prison 2018. I was supposed to die. You saw a lady here, that is the mother of my driver, Yasin Kauma, who was shot, thinking they had shot me, and he died. I was in prison, and it was going to go down like any other abduction. But thanks to the brothers and sisters in Kenya, you started massive protests, which protests spread to the entire world. That is the reason why I'm still alive today. And friends, it did not just start with me. You Kenyans have stood with us from way back in the 60s, in the 70s, when General Museveni and many of his colleagues were fighting against the Obote dictatorship. You housed them, you supported them, you accommodated them. You have not stopped. Even today, you are still with us. Friends, we don't take that for granted. Please don't stop. Continue being our brothers. We will be your brothers as well. Now, the November massacres. You all know that this is a Ugandan issue, and we should be holding this conference in Uganda. It's very unfortunate that we cannot be in Uganda. We cannot mourn our people in Uganda. We cannot talk about issues of human rights in Uganda. That is the sad reality we find ourselves in today. While we are here demanding accountability and focusing on the November massacres, somebody has said it that they did not start, the massacres and the extrajudicial killings by the Museveni regime did not start today, did not start with 2021. It has been happening, including the massacre that took place in Kasese in November 2016, where more than 200 people, including women and children, were killed. Many of them were tied hands in the back and shot dead. It continues. The November massacre is just a big symptom of a long-sitting sickness, a sickness called Musevenism in Uganda. So while we are here, ladies and gentlemen, we should look at all the... while I speak to you right now, one of my bodyguards, called Jamshid Kavuma, has been missing for 13 days today. He was picked by security, by soldiers in Ugandan military uniform, and of course others with no uniform. It was captured on camera. Like many others, we have not seen him again. We don't know whether he's alive or dead. That is where we are today, ladies and gentlemen. Among the victims that have spoken and many that have not spoken. They have dark, dark stories. In this room today, in this room, we have ladies who were raped by Ugandan soldiers and security personnel. In this room. In this room, we have a young man who was castrated like a goat. In this room. Many times, we keep such dark stories to ourselves. But many of them are in this room. He had asked me to call him out so that you people understand that we are actually not making up this. I don't know if you still want to raise your hand, my brother. But in this very room, you can stand from there. That brother is called Magezi, was castrated. In this room here, we have men that have been raped, men that have been sodomized by the Museveni regime. That is where we are. And very painfully, we cannot talk about such in our own home. We are here demanding for human rights. But in our case in Uganda, I'll break it down. We are demanding for the right to be human beings. To be human beings and be treated as such. I was in Europe a few days ago, and they're demanding for different luxurious rights, animal rights, etc., etc. We are yearning for rights to be human beings. Rights for which more than 500,000 of our mothers, fathers, and relatives were killed with the promise of a return for the rule of law, return for respect for human rights, and the same. So we are here today, ladies and gentlemen. We are here with heavy hearts. Hearts that have been mocked. I mean, when they take you to those dungeons in the chieftaincy for military intelligence, CMI, those guys that torture will first tell you, here, we don't believe in human rights. We don't know human rights. We only know human lefts. Yeah, it would be funny if it was not sad. But that's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. You all saw, and Andrew was kidding about it, that General Museveni came out and said, yeah, Bobi Wine was beaten very properly. That is a person that some people in East Africa call the father of the region. Maybe they are right. The father of impunity, the father of dictatorship, the father of lawlessness. That's General Museveni. It will be noted that some of the torture is actually supervised by the Crown Prince of Uganda, General Museveni's son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba. Many of you saw a prolific writer, Kakwenza Lukirabasaija, who is now living in exile in Europe. He mentioned it, that he was tortured and cut and beaten under the supervision of General Muhoozi Museveni's son. That's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. We can go on and on and on about the pain in Uganda, but Dr. Besigye guided, and I agree with him, that we are not here to lament. But now that we are here, and Kamuswaga talked about it, he got very inspired, very motivated that he sees all the leaders, well, not all of us, but at least those that are still, and underline the word still, standing with the people of Uganda. We are here. Now that we are here, Wagwan. Now that we are here, what next? This is a question that many of our people want to ask. What next? For starters, we need to realize that we are being reduced slowly by slowly. Back when Dr. Kizza Besigye was inspiring us to get into leadership, he opened our eyes and tasked us to open many eyes. We went ahead and opened millions of eyes. And maybe that's why the impunity went a notch higher. But now that we are here, And we know that millions of eyes are open back home and all over East Africa. What next? So much can be said. This conference alone cannot be enough. But at least if there's anything to get from this conference, let it flash a light where we are coming from, and that light will bounce back and show us where we're going. Because the farther back you look is the farther in front you will see. The Honorable Matthias Puga reminded us about the Moshi conference. During the days, it was so tough that they could not meet in Uganda. They had to meet in Tanzania. A few years ago, still under Museveni, we would meet in Uganda. Now we can no longer meet in Uganda. We are meeting here in Kenya. How sure are we that next year, because Dr. Beske wants us to meet in Uganda, but how sure are we that next year we will still be able to meet here in Kenya? We might have to meet a little further, maybe in Zambia or even in Europe, if we just sit and do nothing. In my view, ladies and gentlemen, it's important to look back and know that there's nothing as important to us as unity. Just our people seeing us together before we even do anything, that's motivation alone for them. Of course, that's just a starting point. So much we can do, but the first step is coming together. On the 24th up to 26th of March 1979, Ugandans met in Tanzania in the Moshi Conference. Among those leaders was Obote. He had a group he was leading. There was, who else? There was John Barije. He had a group that he was leading. There was Yoweri Museveni. He had a group that he was leading. And there was a gentleman called Pojok. He also had a group that he was leading. It's unfortunate that just after the Moshi Conference, they went back home. And they got reduced to their own groupings. They got divided. They got united. And yes, with that unity, they were able to remove the Amin dictatorship. Unity put an end to the Amin regime. But they did not notice that that unity had to go even a little bit deeper. They went back home, they got divided. Each one retreated to their own small grouping. And that's part of the reason why we are here. I pray that that gives us time, because 43 years later, this is probably one of the likes of the Moshi Conference. But if there's anything to gain from here, is the unity. So that when we go back home, we don't look at this as meet up and taking pictures and that's the end of it. But let it be the glue that binds us. And let it also be a testament to our Kenyan brothers and sisters that have stood for and with us to stick together. I'm speaking, and yet I need a party. But I'll tell you that realistically, there are no political parties in Uganda. You cannot claim to be a political party when you cannot even organize, when you cannot even carry out party activities. Yes, we find ourselves fighting within the opposition. But a deep thinker will shock you to tell you that you cannot claim to have an opposition in Uganda. There's no opposition and there's no government. There's just one group of oppressors oppressing all of us. Only that the oppressors have proved a little smarter. They are more united than we, the oppressed. They are united in their impunity. So, it's important, ladies and gentlemen, that we look at that unity, build on it, and that unity will benefit Ugandans. When we come together, it's for the benefit. These people, these torture survivors that have been here, they are, in my view, a representation of Ugandans. None of these victims was running for any position of office. No, they were supporting us. That's what they faced. And like David Lewis has mentioned it, these are just a few cases that we can show. Otherwise, many of them are even too threatened. They are too scared to even speak out. So now that we are here, ladies and gentlemen, let's capitalize on that unity. Let's build on that unity. Fellow leaders, let us put country before self, like General Moto always guides us. Our country should be bigger than us and the pain of our people. If there's nothing that should unite us, ladies and gentlemen. As I conclude, I want to ask us to stick to the values and not sell out. I'll say that again. Let us stick to the values and not sell out. Besides using violence, General Museveni buys our people. You've seen leaders that once upon a time respected selling out. So the pain of our people should guide us to know that a lot of sacrifice has been made. And let us just return the favor by standing by those values for which we convinced them to get into that trouble, and they are still standing. Let me ask all of us to major on majors. Our major focus and fight is freedom. We should fight to be free. Otherwise, we will not be different from prisoners that are fighting for who is going to be the one serving the portion and the porridge. Let us fight and free ourselves from this prison called Uganda and go into a new Uganda where all of us are going to be free and equal before and under the law. To our Kenyan brothers and friends, we thank you. To the Kenyan leaders, and yes, also the citizens, please resist Museveni and Musevenism. I say it again, please Kenyans, refuse and resist Musevenism. You have seen, and we told you, and we are continuing to see. We want to be able to come and say these things from a neighboring country. And this kind of freedom, I mean, Kenya, you are certainly not where you want to be, but you are where many of us dream to reach. Please keep this, guard it, and guard it very, very jealously. Because once you lose it, you will spend generations trying to get it. To the media, Kenyan media, please keep shining the light on our plight. While we appreciate the Ugandan media, you'll agree with me that it has largely been silenced. We depend so much on social media, and as you know, Facebook is banned in Uganda. Why? Because General Museveni doesn't like it. So, for the media, please keep highlighting our plight. Show the world what is going on in Uganda. That is helpful a great deal. Many of us are still alive because of that weapon called the camera. It is very, very powerful. Please, mutubere. That's a slang back in the ghetto. That means, watch us, don't take your eyes off us, please. And finally, to the international community, we use every opportunity to call up the international community, and I want to do the same right now. You are the people that are propping up monsters in Africa. Idi Amin was supported by you majorly until you got tired of him. Mugabe was supported by you until you got tired of him. My question is, haven't you gotten tired of Museveni yet? When Mugabe did to the people of Zimbabwe what Museveni is doing to the people of Uganda, you sanctioned him. When Taylor did the same, you sanctioned him. When Saddam did the same, you sanctioned him. Why are you still hobnobbing with the dictator called Museveni? Please, the international community, stop sponsoring our terror. Stop sponsoring our oppression. Stop being partners in crime. Thank you very much for God and my country.